Welcome back, watch people. Now, the last 48 hours have been full of irony and coincidence, and as this video pans out, I'm sure you'll understand why. Let's start off with some good news today. Rarely do you get too much good news on my channel. Unfortunately, I'm one of those people that likes to try and warn you against the bad things that take place in this world, which doesn't always make for a fluffy piece of entertainment. But the good news is that I had a phone call from the City of London Police today. Now, 5 years ago, back in 2015, I was defrauded out of 3 watches to one individual who paid me by a bank transfer, and some months later, from memory, I think it was quite a few months. I've actually done a video on this somewhere back, you'd find it. Some months later, the funds were simply withdrawn from my bank and given back to the person from whose account it came from, after they claimed that it wasn't them that bought any watches. So I lost, I think it was about £15,000 to this particular individual. Now, the good news is that one of those watches has been sent in to Rolex for a service, and they are now holding it and working alongside the police to try and trace its original owner. I'm not sure how they're going to feel when they find out that it's me. But I will keep you informed, guys, as to any progress and what happens. Look, listen, I might be lucky. I might get one of my stolen watches back. You never know. Now, when I talked about irony and coincidence, as I said, it's all going to become apparent, because this video was going to be focused around an email that I received from one of our viewers, Charles. And Charles wrote in and said, "Hi Paul, I watched your latest video about the Rolex lost and stolen register with great interest after I recently discovered the Submariner that I'd purchased 2 years ago turned out to be stolen after sending it to Rolex for a service. Thankfully, the dealer I purchased the watch from offered a full refund that was gratefully received, and I cannot praise him enough for his professionalism and approach to the problem. Whilst Rolex insinuated that the dealer was partly to blame for selling me a stolen watch, I did mention to them that all this could have been avoided if they made their lost and stolen register services available to dealers outside of their official network. And more worryingly, the watch did come with a certificate from thewatchregister.com, with whom I know you have a relationship. So, my questions to you, Paul, are as follows. 1. Are the watch register certificates even worth the paper that they're written on? And 2, do you think Rolex will ever reintroduce this service to help prevent members of the public from buying stolen watches? Well, Charles, that has obviously fallen quite nicely into this video. Let me answer your first question first. I don't currently have a relationship with the watch register. I've worked with them in the past. I support what they do. They're a good organisation. Their register is not complete, and it will never be complete until all the major manufacturers work alongside them. I think they're working very hard to try and get as many as possible on board. Whether that will ever happen with Rolex, I very much doubt, because Rolex will only really ever do what benefits Rolex. Are the watch register certificates worth the paper they're written on? Absolutely. Even though I'm not working with those guys these days, I would still recommend that you use them. I would still insist that a watch that you buy is checked against the watchregister.com's system. Is it perfect? Is it a perfect system? No. As Charles's watch has proven. It wasn't on the watch register's database, but it was on the official database. But look, no system apart from the official Rolex system is perfect. So it is what it is. It's not the best in the world, but it's certainly better than nothing. And the second question is, do I think Rolex will ever reintroduce this service to help prevent members of the public buying stolen watches? Well, look, Charles, the only time that's going to happen is if we, and when I say we, I'm talking about me, I'm talking about you and other members of the watch buying public, and most importantly, my fellow watch YouTubers, we should all get together on this one and create enough pressure, enough public pressure on Rolex to reinstate what I think is the most important thing that is missing from the watch business and the watch industry in 2020. Without a question of a doubt, the vast majority of watch crime that takes place these days, and I'm afraid we're going to be coming onto that as well again in a moment, the vast majority of watch crime in 2020 can take place with the people that are responsible knowing full well that the lost and stolen register is not available to independent dealers or the general public. It's an absolute travesty in my mind. And to me, it's an absolute travesty that Rolex refused to make this database public knowledge available to independent dealers and the general public. It's criminal, it's horrible, it's a horrible practice, and every single watch enthusiast in the entire world should write to Rolex, should email their local authorised dealer. Every single watch YouTuber in the world, we should all get together and create enough public pressure on Rolex that, look, we need your lost and stolen register. Not only would it help prevent people from buying stolen watches, but it would almost certainly help lower the rate of watch crime at the same time. After all, why would anybody be worried about stealing Rolex watches when they know that they're going to be hard to check against the lost and stolen register? It doesn't make any sense, and for me, it must be reinstated, but it will only happen, Charles, with enough pressure from everyone in the watch business. And that, by the way, if there's anyone watching from the watch press, as it were, some of the more established watch journals, you guys as well, you need to get on board with this as well. We all need each other on this one. We all should be singing from the same song sheet and fighting the same battle. Now, this brings me on to the last part of the video, which is going to be, again, I'm afraid it's bad news. Look, I've had 2 phone calls and 1 visit from watch dealers this week, dealer friends of mine, people I know of in the industry, that are being continually on a daily basis being targeted by the bank transfer fraudsters. Now, this I've been a victim of myself. This is how I lost that watch that I opened up with, that I was talking to you about, that the City of London police are now dealing with. I lost 3 watches to one scammer in about a month's period, and it happened numerous times, and the bank just comes back in, takes the money, and you've lost the watch, and the scammer keeps the money and the watch. It's a nightmare. But look, for those of you that haven't watched these previous videos that I've done on this subject, let me tell you very briefly how this works. And I'm always worried about teaching people how to do bad things, but my philosophy is this: I think the vast majority of people out there that are that way inclined know this stuff already. Unfortunately, the people that don't know this stuff already are good, honest, decent individuals like yourselves, who are just unaware of what's going on out in that big, wide, horrible world, and you're the ones that are getting caught. So I don't really consider that I'm teaching anyone anything apart from hopefully the good guys. The bad guys already know this stuff, and look, even if we did teach one person how to steal other people's money, let's hope that's balanced by me teaching a lot more decent people how not to have their money or their watches stolen from them. Now, this scam, this fraud, works very simply, and the easiest way is to get 2 people involved, 2 friends, Mr. A and Mr. B. Now, Mr. A has a bank account, and he has some money in that bank account. He has a debit card, he has a banking system available to him online, and he has, of course, all his ID. And Mr. B is his cohort, his partner in crime, and Mr. B rings up his local watch dealer and orders a watch and says, I'll pay for that by a bank transfer. Now, Mr. B simply uses Mr. A's bank account to pay for that watch. The watch is then sent to Mr. B. Mr. B and Mr. A are now in possession of this watch. They're partners in it after all. And when the watch is received, give it a few days, and Mr. A will ring his bank up and say, I don't know what this £20,000 is doing missing out of my account. It's nothing to do with me. And the bank will very kindly take part in this scam, in this fraud, and very kindly give Mr. A his money back, leaving Mr. A with his money back, Mr. B with his £20,000 Rolex watch, and the poor seller, the dealer or the private individual, whichever case it may be, without anything at all. And the bank will simply inform the seller of the watch that if he looks at his terms and conditions, banks are allowed to take money back out from your account and return it to the rightful account in cases of fraud. Now, this has been a problem for a very, very long time. And I've told anyone that will listen that a bank transfer is not safe. It's not safe particularly within the first 24 to 48 hours, but most banks will reserve the right to take that payment back in up to 6 months' time from the period or from the date in which you received it. 6 months. It's absolutely incredible. The banks are participating, are aiding and abetting these scammers. Why they do it, I don't know. The banks are all in this together. The banking system, as far as I'm concerned, is shattered. It's broken. I don't trust banks any more than I trust someone that wants to write me out a check and put it in the post, because even when that check arrives, you don't know if it's going to clear. Guys, honestly, bank transfers cannot be trusted. Now, where does that leave us, and where does it leave the British banking system? Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's been broken for years, but it's the gap, the break is becoming bigger and bigger, because there's more and more and more of these scammers catching on to this relatively easy crime, a crime that the police won't investigate. Guys, look, I've already exposed the fact that the police are not investigating any fraud under £20,000. They don't even want to know. All you'll get is a crime reference number. So what is stopping these criminals? What stops people from just going out this afternoon and buying anything they want and then claiming that they didn't pay for it? Well, I'll tell you what stopped people from doing it: decency and honesty. And we all know how many people lack some of those morals up and down the country, and indeed right across the world. So we are in a complete and utter mess. Now, I'm talking predominantly about the watch dealing industry. I've had a friend this morning, and I'm sitting there with him face to face, who looked to me to be close to tears over this. He said, "Paul, I don't know how I'm going to carry on. 6 out of every 10 people that want to pay me by a bank transfer are trying to scam me." Now, you could say, well, how does he know they're trying to scam him? Well, there's a few telltale signs that, for one reason or another, I don't want to go into all of them, because, you know, there are things that I can give away here that wouldn't do anyone any favours, and I'm not going to do that, because I just want to be responsible for helping people not to lose their money rather than encourage people to steal it. But this is the problem. Watch dealers in general, a lot of watch dealers are close to the point of giving up because of the amount of fraud that's going on, and there's nothing they can do about it. The banking system has to change. The banking system has got to make sure, has got to guarantee that your bank transfer that comes into your account is going to stay there. I mean, look, the laws make it very difficult for us. €10,000, or the UK equivalent, is the cash limit. We can't take £20,000 in cash payment. We're breaking the law. You can go to jail for money laundering by taking that sort of money in cash, which is, at least, it remains a safe way of taking payment. When someone offers you a £20,000 bank transfer, you are relying on that person's honesty for that money to stay there. And I don't know about you, but I'm glad I'm not in a position these days where I have to rely on people's integrity to keep my money in my bank account, because I don't have a lot of faith in some people's integrity. Now, that's all the bad news. Is there any good news to this? Well, there's a solution, or I think there's kind of a solution, and people are going to very much have to get used to dealing with each other in a very different way. And there's two sides to this coin. There's the dealer, or the seller, whichever that may be, and the buyer, the purchaser. Now, if I was a dealer today and someone purchased a watch from me via bank transfer, I would have to tell them that, look, thank you very much for your bank transfer, I will accept it. But I'm going to need two things in addition to that. I'm going to need a fair bit of ID and proof of your address. But I'm also going to need a photograph of you holding your passport, so I can clearly see that you are the person on that passport photograph, with an email confirming that you and you alone made that bank transfer, and you are responsible for that bank transfer, and you alone have sent that money to me under no duress. Because otherwise you can simply go back to the bank and say it wasn't me, and I have no proof that it was without that photograph. So I think people that are buying are going to have to get used to maybe being asked a few more questions than just your address, your delivery address, etc., etc., than the current questions that they're being asked. If I was buying and a dealer asked me for those details, look, I would understand, I wouldn't mind, I wouldn't be offended. But the reason I'm adding this to this video is that, guys, if your dealer does ask you for a photograph, if your dealer is questioning you more, even though you're paying by bank transfer, which to me and you as honest people, we think is as safe as it gets, because we've got no intentions of trying to defraud anyone or steal anyone's watch or anyone's money. But that's not how the bad guys are working. That's not how their mind works. And the buying public out there have got to put themselves in the watch dealers' situation, and the watch dealers themselves have also got to understand that not all of the public are going to appreciate being asked for extra ID when they're paying an honest purchase with honest money, and they're going to think, well, why does he want a photograph of me holding my passport? But this is why, guys, the British banking system is absolutely shattered to smithereens. We cannot trust a bank transfer. Bank transfers are how we buy our houses here in the UK. Where does this stop? Where does it end? I'm amazed that this hasn't made national news, because this isn't just the reserve of the watch business. I've got friends in all types of high-end businesses right across the UK, and a boat dealer friend of mine was telling me the other day that he's had people trying to buy boats from him by bank transfer, and he's smelt the rat, and thankfully the transaction's not taken place, or he's had money transferred to him for a boat, the boat's just about to go out and the money's been taken back. The banks have got a lot to answer for, guys, and we really do need to keep a very close eye on bank transfers. You know, I can only reiterate what I've said in previous videos about bank transfers. They are not safe. Bank transfers are not the payment you think they are. Now, my final bit of advice, and perhaps a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, if you are selling something to someone and you are worried that your bank may potentially take that money back from your account, there is one thing that you can do to try and protect yourself, because your bank's terms and conditions will ensure that the only people that never lose money is the bank themselves, and you sign those terms and conditions when you opened up your account. So you need to be a little bit smart, you need to be a little bit bright, you need to be a bit ahead of yourself. You need to ring up your bank, get them on loudspeaker, record the conversation and ask the questions. Is that money in my account? Is it cleared funds? That's the first question. Once they tell you yes, it's cleared funds, it's a bank transfer, say, is there any way that that money can be removed from my account? And invariably they will say no, because even a lot of people that work at these call centres are not aware of what's going on. You need these questions answered successfully. Is it cleared funds? Yes. Can the money be withdrawn from my account now? No. Is it safe to send the goods? Yes. Those are the questions that you need to get on tape and recorded from a worker at your online or your telephone banking system. Once you have that, make sure you keep it, make sure you store it, keep it for at least 6 months, because if the bank comes back in future and just suddenly withdraws that payment, at least you've got at least one leg to stand on when you try and get that money back. And I think under law, you will find yourself a whole heap more covered than if you have no conversation or anything in writing at all from the bank. Guys, I don't want to scare anyone, I don't want to be the prophet of doom, but listen, I'm right there on the front line talking to dealers and people in business week in, week out, and this problem is just growing and getting out of hand. And it's getting out of hand for two very big reasons. It's getting out of hand because the police won't get involved, and it's getting out of hand because the banks are complicit in aiding and abetting these people do their job, and they're making it easy for them. Guys, I haven't got the answer as far as the police is concerned. I haven't got the answer as far as the banks' rather questionable motives behind what goes on in their terms and conditions. What I do have the answer to, you know, look guys, I could sit here and make some lovely fluffy watch videos and do all the nice camera work and bits and pieces, but ultimately that ain't what this channel's about. This channel's about real people, real life, real experiences, and trying to save you from the clutches of these evil, horrible, hideous people out there that would steal your money in a heartbeat and not even think about it. Guys, thanks for watching as always. If you want to support me on my channel, all I ask you to do is like the videos, subscribe if you can, Spread the word, guys. I'm trying my hardest for you people. I really am, genuinely trying my absolute hardest. I'm up to nearly 25,000 subscribers now, and I think we can really try and make strides forward. And lastly, I'll just finish on this. Please, if anyone else out there is watching from another YouTube channel, let's get together. Let's put this pressure on Rolex. Let's try and get this lost and stolen register reinstated. If we could do that, it would be the biggest achievement of my own personal career. Thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll speak again soon.